Live from the 8th Layer Media Studios in the back rooms of the deep web, this is the FAIK Files.
When tech gets weird, we are here to make sense of it. I'm Perry Carpenter.
And I'm Mason Amadeus. And this week, we have a fun grab bag of topics for you. We're going to open up. Segment 1 is all about how being polite to ChatGPT is wasting Sam Altman's money.
Ooh. Then we're going to talk about how deepfakes continue to get really, really good. And the bad part is they're super easy.
In segment 3, another thing that has gotten super easy is coding, and that has given birth to an entire new field called vibe coding. We're going to dive into that later in the episode.
And then what would you think if your entire newspaper edition was AI generated?
Oh, gosh. I don't think I would like that very much.
I don't know. Apparently some people do.
Really? Okay. Well, that'll be interesting. All of this and more coming up. So just sit back, relax, and tell me if our introduction format with this joke is getting a bit too contrived. We'll open up the FAIK Files right after this. Perry, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you say please and thank you to your AI assistants while you're using them, ChatGPT, Claude, and whatnot?
It depends. Not consistently, but every now and then I find myself doing it. And then sometimes I do it intentionally to try to see if it gets a different response.
Interesting. But you're not a part of the crowd of people who are like, oh, I say please every time just in case the robot uprising ever happens. That's
I'm not a robot uprising, please and thank you type of person that's trying to seed goodwill ahead of time. I've done enough bad things to these that I'm pretty sure that if they're already collecting a file that I'm on it, and no amount of please and thank you is going to fix that.
Yeah, you've burned that bridge long ago.
Right.
At this point. Well, Sam Altman will thank you. This is just a funny story. And Sam Altman doesn't even necessarily think you shouldn't do this, but he did admit that being polite is wasting money. Found this out from this Futurism article. Sam Altman admits that saying please and thank you to ChatGPT is wasting millions of dollars in computing power. And what happened was a poster on Twitter just wondered aloud how much money OpenAI has lost in electricity costs from people saying please and thank you to their models. And Sam Altman chimed in and said, tens of millions of dollars well spent. You never know. So Sam might be, it's all tongue in cheek, right? I don't know. I don't sincerely think that saying please or thank you is what's going to save you in the robot uprising if that were to ever happen, which I don't really think is likely. So I think Sam's being tongue in cheek here. But there's something to talk about in that it is using compute, right? Because if you just send a prompt that is thank you or please, it's got to run all these calculations just to return that. But I can't help but think, why don't they just intercept that on the way in? Or have some sort of non-AI algorithms?
Yeah, you could filter that. I mean, that's the problem with all the other things, right? So in cybersecurity, there's this whole concept whenever you're coding a UX that you should be doing input validation because when you don't, you end up being susceptible to SQL injection, cross-site scripting, other input validation stuff. And it seems like the AI world hasn't figured that out yet because we would be able to deal with a whole bunch of potentially malicious prompts that way, and then also strip off please and thank you if you wanted to.
I think it's interesting because input validation, typically you're looking for the most simplest form would be you'd want to break out of any sort of code characters and things that could otherwise cause things to execute. But because you interface with LLMs through natural language text, I'm sure that becomes a bit more complex. But there's other kinds of natural language processing that aren't like LLMs that could probably handle determining if something is simply an acknowledgement or a politeness.
Yeah. I don't know the best way to. I guess maybe you waste your compute dollars somewhere else and you get a smaller LLM just to process the request and get strip out any niceties and maybe even try to inject some understanding of what the prompt is to figure out which parts to leave in, which parts to potentially modify before passing to another one.
Kind of like Anthropic's classifiers, constitutional classifiers that pre-check for harm, kind of doing that. Like having a middleman to hand the message and optimize your prompt for compute. I guess that could happen.
And I think so. And I think that does happen because you see in a lot of, especially like the image and video generation AI systems, they have these like little magic prompt things that you can click on, which will take your really boring prompt and then add a whole bunch of cinematic language and try to really craft the image the way that it's trying to interpret your meaning behind it. And I think that this is maybe a side conversation, but I've heard a lot of people over the past year say that prompt engineering will not be a thing that people have to learn. I think that's still dead wrong because everybody uses Google right now. Everybody uses search engines. But people that started at the very beginning where they had to understand Booleans very well and then understand a whole bunch of interesting little Google dorks like, Insight and all of that, where you can search specific sites. After. And there's way more productivity that can be gained through understanding how a search engine works than just throwing stuff into Google. And I think that the same is going to be true for prompting forever.
And I think you're absolutely right, because that goes into part of what is talked about in the Futurism article of like the use of polite language will steer the kind of response you get. So, similar, like using Google, you can absolutely use Google more efficiently. And I didn't realize, I had taken this for granted. I'm probably, based on just my age, like on the cusp of people who are taught how to Google. Because I don't think most people younger than me know really the significance of using Booleans. And actually, I think Google sort of stopped putting as much significance on Booleans, but there's still tricks like cite, after, before, all those other things. And yeah, having that knowledge and using it will always be good. And I think that putting something in between the user and the AI will make it harder to use, similar to how Google making fuzzy search, making search fuzzier has kind of made it harder to use for research. I imagine the same could happen with AI if we approach it that way.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I do always think that for somebody that has grown up or has been formally trained in coding, somebody that's been really formally put a lot of work into prompting and understanding the way that these work under the covers, they're always going to have an advantage whenever they go to whatever interface is presented to them versus somebody that just assumes that the machine is going to do most of the interpretive work.
Well, we're going to have to hit on that in segment 3 even more when we talk about vibe coders. But to turn back to just the wasting of money and power from being polite to AI, there was a survey done to see how many people are very polite to their AI and why. So I'll show the results of that now. This is from Tech Radar. We'll link it in the description. And they found that 67% of people are polite with their AI tech, so just ChatGPT when they're using it.
Oh, interesting.
And it's broken down. 55% say yes, it's just the nice thing to do. Another 12% say yes, when the robot uprising happens, I don't want to be first. And then the other, whatever other percentage, 20, and then this one that's cut off because I blew it up so it'd show on the screen. Whatever left over after 62%, just don't. Because of efficiency or because, why would they? So it is still a vast majority of people saying please and thank you, and that's using more power. And if you believe a lot of the reporting that's going out around power usage, that could add up to a lot. There's this article that is linked from that Futurism article, unless I made a mistake. I believe it's linked to the Futurism article, to this Washington Post article from September of last year saying that it takes a bottle of water per email if you use ChatGPT to write a 100-word email. Now, I wanted to hit on this again and bang on this power drum one more time, that I know that I talked in the past about wanting to do a big analysis on AI and power usage because these claims seem completely orders of magnitude outlandish to me. And I just quickly tracing some of the sources in here, they all kind of lead circularly back to small papers that all reference that original IEA report that lumped in crypto with AI. And there is a new article that you sent to me from Axios that actually says that these numbers may be overblown. And this is the first reporting I'm seeing that seems to be looking at different, more modern numbers in different sources. And it's not to say that AI power use is not a factor in environmental concerns. It absolutely is in power use and water use, but it's not as crazy as dumping out a bottle of water. I've seen people on social media make the connection that if saying please and thank you is wasting millions of dollars, it's also wasting tons of gallons of water and stuff like that. So our politeness is literally killing the planet through this stupid robot. And that's just not true.
I understand the concern for that. I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding of water consumption versus water use. in those studies, because when you're in kind of closed system, water cooled environments, it is like the circulation of the cooling. It's like how much is needed, and then there's some displacement, there's some condensation and replacement of that needs to happen. But I think that people kind of mix those numbers every now and then, and there's not a really good, clean analysis that I've been able to find that makes the conclusion really clear.
Yeah, there's no clean analysis of all of it. But I will say that there are evaporative cooling towers that are pretty commonly employed, where the water that is heated from being pumped through all the computer systems is then run over these fiber boards, which have air blown over them, and they evaporate, which also cools remaining water, but it does produce a lot of steam. That water doesn't always come down in the same place, so that is a problem. And that is actually employed in a lot of places. So there is a water use. In a lot of cases, that water is not potable. In some cases, it is, and that's like not good. But it is just so much more nuanced, and there are a lot of closed-loop systems, and we are moving towards even more and more closed-loop systems and more efficient things. So that power use landscape is changing, and yeah, there's just a lot to simplify.
Yeah, and I guess speaking of that, if you're a power user of a large language model, maybe you don't need to use please and thank you. But I did see a post the other day of somebody talking about, like, whenever they go and they introduce AI use in large language models to people, they don't discourage the use of please and thank you, because they're trying to let people lean into the fact that it's a different form of computing. And if you approach it like a conversation in a brainstorming session, that's different than just kind of feeding in, A plus B equals C type of things. And you're going to have a potentially better outcome if you can just, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, vibe with it.
Yeah, talk to it like a person. I mean, I think that's important too. Like, I think it helps illustrate to people how these things work. And then also, depending on what you're doing, saying please and thank you will get you statistically closer to the type of response or tone of response you want in some cases. So
it could. And then sometimes you just got to say, make me a sandwich.
Yeah, exactly. I've stopped thinking about it as chatting and more about strategic use of language as input now, as like
that's what I do too.
Yeah.
So I've been stating a few different stats in most of my presentations for the past year or so, going back to studies from 2022, 2023, and now 2024. What we see over and over and over again is that people are really, really bad at detecting deepfakes. And one of the stats that I put in really big letters is 21.6%. And that's from a study from 2023 where people were warned that within the next 5 videos, they were going to see a deep fake. And the 21.6% is the accuracy percentage of people trying to pick out which one was the deep fake.
Ouch. Okay.
Which means about 80% of the time they're getting it wrong.
Yeah.
Which is not good. That means we live already, and for the past year and a half or so, have lived in a place where people don't know what's real or not reliably if you're creating a good fake. And one of the things that I showed last week on LinkedIn that got a lot of attention is just how easy it is to turn into somebody else. So like if I hit this magic button and I shift my background to something else, we're really used to that in Zoom. But with the click of a button, and this won't change my hair, but for anybody watching, you'll see my face just change in an instant to this is my boss's face at KnowBe4. Of course, I could switch to like Nicolas Cage really quick. And, with a couple touch-ups, if I wore a hat or something to fix the hair, all of a sudden it becomes way more believable. And we're very, very used to like glitchy stuff and things like that because we're, in these environments where people are doing background replacements all the time.
Oh,
and, yeah, you're literally just like watching me shift through face after face after face, and it's that quick now, and it's like directly integrated into Zoom.
The shadow of your glasses on this one is actually being projected down onto your fake face.
Exactly.
That's wild.
And like if if I were to switch faces, you know, one of the interesting things you see is that like they are all very light reactive.
Whoa!
Everything else, there's nothing really that gives away that you're in a fake environment really easily now, other than some of the delay and some of the little digital artifacts that you might see. So I think we're in this place where more and more and more we're going to be seeing people show up in Zoom calls and things like that as deepfake. So I'll go back to myself really quick.
The second to last face you did there, Perry, looked so real that if you joined a call and I wasn't like very familiar with you, I would have believed that was like a real person just using a bad background replacement. Yeah.
Was it this one?
Yeah. That is very convincing. That is very convincing. Holy smokes.
And then other than my hair and my background, well, you're not seeing
even
my
your
actual
hair.
Background. Yeah. It looks like it fits well. So,
you look like your name is Marcus.
You know, the power. What?
Nothing. I just said you look like your name is Marcus. Like you just look like a plausible person, just a different person.
No, this is a guy named Devin that I know. He's a chief information security officer at a company that I won't disclose.
That's a trip.
So all of these, if you're watching, these are single faces where I just downloaded an image from the internet and now I can cycle through them at will. So that's neither here nor there really related to the overarching thing for the story, because if I wanted to really use this technology the way a scammer would, I'm not necessarily always going to be trying to impersonate a celebrity or CISO. Most scammers are just trying to become a plausible different person that looks attractive so that they can execute a romance scam.
Right.
So they don't need to become a familiar person. They just need to become a different person than their normal face so that they can then engage with people online. But one of the things that came to my attention this last week was a new study that is going to be at the heart of a lot of the problems when it comes to deepfakes, which is that, again, people have a really, really hard time telling the difference between reality and fake faces and images and voices right now. And what we even saw is that super recognizers, this is a category of people that first kind of hit the spotlight around 2019, I think, with some studies. And a super recognizer is somebody that really just recognizes faces instantly and can remember faces and details very well and can understand people's emotions really well and understand if they're lying or not. There's, these super categories of people that just inherently are very, very good at that.
That was a law enforcement thing, wasn't it? Where they did programs where they would like train people or try and find people with that innate talent and train them to perform this role of super recognizer, right? That's like been an established thing.
This is kind of mixing a couple different studies. So the study on truth analysis or deceptiveness is, I think, predates this one on super recognizers, but you can see how like the research fits together really well. Mm-hmm. And what they found is that when it comes to people like me, I'm very bad at recognizing faces. Like if I watch a deep fake video where somebody swapped a video, I'm like, I can't tell the difference. Lots of times. They look that, generic to me. People's ability to recognize faces is largely genetic, and research shows that 70 to 90% of differences between individuals are explainable through genetics. So the fact that I can't recognize faces very well is, I'm just predisposed to that.
It's your parents' fault.
Yeah, it's my parents' fault. Human brains and eyes have evolved to recognize identity faces, but discriminating between different people is a conceptually new task. This makes processing unfamiliar faces, such as for forensic purposes, it's relatively inconsistent and is prone to error. But that's what broader security officials, they want to manually check passports or identify that at scale. So they say that super recognizers are an exception. They were discovered in 2009. So I said 2019 before. I was only 10 years off. Mm-hmm. During the research to develop a test for face blindness, which is a word that I cannot say. How do you say that?
Prosopagnosia.
I think that second P gets softened.
I bet you it's prazo also. Prosopagnosia.
What they were hoping to see is that super recognizers, these people that can discriminate between faces really well, are going to be also super recognizers when it comes between authentic and synthetic faces. Turns out they're not, which means that we now have another human frailty when it comes to discriminating between real and synthetic faces. But they do offer maybe a potentially good note towards the end. What they're starting to say is that if we start to train models on real people and then train another model on synthetically created people, like people that are on this person does not exist, or using a deep fake system like I did, then maybe those systems will naturally try to, you'll gamify that. You'll run it through a GAN the way that you would image generation or anything else, really. And then maybe you get this super recognizer class of computer systems or AI systems that are just very good at that because they've seen so many and accurately predicted in their pre-training so many synthetic faces that they just have an innate ability to go, that one's real, that one's fake.
That's cool. And that's a very interesting idea. There's also something I'm wondering, and I wonder if it was covered in this study, of when they tested super recognizers against deepfakes, did they test consistency of like deep faking the same subject? Because like consistency across generations has been a longstanding hurdle that we cross in AI image and video generation, that consistency. I would imagine if anything, super recognizers would have the ability to notice that there's differences between like multiple generations of the same deep faked person. Did it cover that? Or did it show they didn't?
I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to read past the article and actually read the study, which I didn't do. I just, kind of read the summaries and thought that was interesting.
It is.
Now, one other thing I want to touch on before we go is that, again, when it comes to deepfakes, I think the game is changing a little bit. And this was something I sent to you in Discord yesterday. There's this company called Nari Labs, which introduced DIA, which is a 1.6 billion parameter text-to-speech model designed to produce naturalistic dialogue directly from text prompts.
Oh, it's so cool.
And it is really, really good.
Yeah.
To the point where if I heard a conversation that was generated on it and didn't know that it was fake, I would think that it was real. So here's an example, and I'll hit play here.
DIA is an open weights text-to-dialogue model.
You get full control over scripts and voices.
Wow, amazing.
Try it now on GitHub or Hugging Face.
Wild.
It sounds like you hear a microphone being put down, right?
Yeah, there's even handling noise, yeah.
They also have this comparison. So here's the same sentence that's spoken through 11 Labs.
Here is an open weights text-to-dialogue model.
You get full control over scripts and voices.
Wow, amazing.
Try it now on GitHub or Hugging Face.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound bad. It just sounds stilted, almost like people are rehearsing for a radio ad.
They took a pretty unflattering example for 11 Labs. 11 Labs can do better.
There's some cherry picking for sure, right?
But nothing like what you get out of DIA right away. It's immediately so emotive, and you can control like multiple speakers in one prompt at a go.
Exactly. Here is one other example of a script where you have two different speakers, one just saying, hey, how are you doing? Pretty good. What about you? I'm great. So happy to be speaking with you, and so on. So here's what that sounds like.
Hey, how are you doing?
Pretty good. What about you?
I'm great. So happy to be speaking to you.
Me too. This is some cool stuff, huh?
Yeah, I have been reading more about speech generation.
Yeah.
And it really seems like context is important.
Definitely.
Wow. I have been reading about speech generation. It took a speech pattern that I have. It did it just chose to do that.
Pause where it's thinking for a second about how to phrase something. And then here's some lines from The Office that you may have to, you'll have to bleep one of the words.
Okay.
Oh, fire! Oh my goodness! What's the procedure? What do we do, people? The smoke could be coming through an air duct!
Oh my God, okay. It's happening. Everybody stay calm.
What's the procedure?
Everybody stay calm. Everybody calm down.
No! If you touch the handle, if it's hot, there might be a fire down the hallway.
I mean, it's really impressive. There's obviously, like, it's not flawless. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's really good.
But it sounds like, though, is that it's overly compressed. If I heard that, I wouldn't think it was AI generated. I would think it was just bad audio.
Absolutely. And the fact that, like, nothing is specified here about intonation. It's just speaker 1, this, speaker 2, this, and then maybe like a laugh or something. But it's not like screaming and then this.
Like laugh or coughs and, in little parentheses, and the model knows how to interpret this. Now, the thing is this was like 2 grad students with no funding.
Oh, wow.
And no prior knowledge of AI.
Really?
That's the story. And they've got a model that, in some circumstances is outperforming the top models that exist.
That's
so I'm going to do
cool.
one more example, and then I know that we need to end this segment, but here's one more.
Hey there. Why did you just cough? Why did you just sniff?
Why did you just clear your throat?
Why did you just laugh?
Nicely done.
Wow. Wow.
Like, that sounds like people rehearsing for a sketch comedy,
It
right?
sounds, it's very naturalistic. It's very expressive.
I'm going to do, even though I said that's the last one, I'm going to do one more because I haven't listened to this one.
His palms are sweaty, knees weak, arms are heavy.
There's vomit on his sweater already. Mom's spaghetti.
He's nervous, but on the surface, he looks calm and ready
to drop bombs, but he keeps on forgetting.
What he wrote down, the whole crowd goes so loud.
He opens his mouth, but the words won't come out.
He's choking, Hal. Everybody's joking now. He's
a little bit of
it just kind of fizzled out at the end.
Glitch at the end, but yeah. It doesn't sound like Eminem.
Some tests that were, it doesn't sound like Eminem, but it did have rhythm, which was interesting. We did some tests with it yesterday. Nothing extensive, but found that it's interesting, fun, surprising, quirky.
I didn't know that it was just 2 grad students who made it, which makes it was already impressive. Now I'm even more impressed. It's very cool.
Yeah, crazy. The 2 guys in the garage model that just had motivation to get something done. We're going to see that over and over and over again with AI, I think. We're
also going to see sort of the opposite, which is where people don't want to put in the time to learn about what they're doing and just want to let AI do it and release products to the public that are code that they don't know how it works. And it's called vibe coding. And the next segment is all about that.
This is the FAIK Files.
So I'm going to talk about something that I actually like, but obviously has problems. I like it in one way, and I don't like it in another. And I think that right now it's getting a lot of hate. Have you heard of vibe coding? Have you encountered vibe coders?
Oh boy, have I heard of vibe coding.
Oh, really?
And vibe coders, yeah. Especially over the past 2.5, 3 months, for sure. But I think even before that, like when Cursor AI started to become a thing. And then I've been hearing just vibe, brainstorming sessions with LLMs. But the primary space that I've been hearing about it in is coding. And I think it's good that it unlocks a lot of potential, but there's a lot of downsides to it.
Yeah. So for the uninitiated, because I somehow didn't stumble on this until I think yesterday this term, I stumbled on a LinkedIn post. For the uninitiated, there's actually a Wikipedia article about it, so that's how you know it's for real.
I'm sure there is.
Vibe coding is a programming technique dependent on artificial intelligence, where a person describes a problem in a few sentences as a prompt to a large language model tuned for coding. The LLM generates software, shifting the programmer's role from manual coding to guiding testing and refining the AI-generated source code. So it is coding using AI without knowing how to code, which on an individual level, for an individual person who wants to create their own cool little project, is a huge unlock. But what's really weird is that I'm seeing a lot of parallels to AI art. It has gone beyond that to where people are it has become a thing, a proper noun to become a vibe coder. Mm-hmm. So much so that here's a real job listing for a vibe coder job.
Stupid, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, and we're going to get into why this is a problem in a second, but I just want to read how they describe it in this job listing. A vibe coder is a rare breed, a fusion of a product manager, engineer, and UX thinker. You're the type of person who doesn't just build features, you design the experience, question the roadmap, and iterate until it just feels right. You think like a founder, execute like a solo operator, and know exactly when to loop in the right people. Let's redefine how products are built. That's a red flag parade right there, I think.
Yeah, actually, so in the right context, that's a good description for something, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the old idea of a skunk works is you're gonna like sit in a room, throw a ball against the wall, toss ideas around. It comes back. You make some changes, and by design, you're creating an imperfect thing that shows potential. It's like a directional thing, and then somebody makes the real version of that.
Yeah, like there's nothing wrong with pie in the sky engineering or going through that at all, and there's no problem having AI help you code things. The problem is when you are a vibe coder only, you have no knowledge of coding or any of like the underlying concepts, and you release products to the public.
Yeah, you don't want to release stuff to the world that's been solely vibe coded and not run through any other stuff. And I have heard of that. I think that there are probably a bunch of people making mobile apps that way right now, and then doing pay features on that. And so that's going to be a thing. The iteration cycle for products, I think, makes it really, really attractive, because you can create a product, get it out in the world, build some excitement, get a few $1,000s or maybe more, and then that thing become obsolete because the next wave of products comes that's better than that. And so you're like filling technology gaps and product gaps really fast. The biggest problem is like, what are you doing that's got some potentially private data that needs to be protected, has some security functionality, gets integrated with a larger IT stack and creates vulnerabilities or worse?
Yeah. And also, and I feel like in a lot of cases, what product gaps you're filling is important too, because there's just like a lot of slop and bunk and noise and stuff, like people trying to make a quick buck, throwing something out that's sloppy. So like, yeah, it's one of those things where like, it's turning into a dirty word to be a vibe coder, and like I feel that it's kind of like being a poser, but it's also like you said, there's also like fast iteration is attractive, prototyping is fine, building products is fine. This meme is something I really like, which is the first time I saw the term vibe coder. It says it was a tweet from Esoteric Cafe on Twitter saying, "Good time to get into cybersecurity because all these vibe coded apps are going to make it to production soon enough."
That's what we always talk about in the cybersecurity world, is that if people are vibe coding and then building that as a production ready system, you're essentially just creating this whole fleet of 0 days. And those for who are not in cybersecurity, if you've not heard of a 0 day, it just means an exploit that's not previously been known widely, or had the industry hasn't had a chance to patch it. And so there's just these huge vulnerabilities that anybody that knows about it can drive a truck through and cause devastation.
And it's because they've been aware of it for 0 days, right? That's where the name comes from?
Yeah, the industry's only been aware for a day. The attackers may have been aware for weeks, months, years, whatever. And then also, I would say if you're using a kind of an unvetted large language model like DeepSeek or something to do your vibe coding with, you may actually be intentionally, or China may be intentionally putting 0 days in your code. So you have to think about that too.
Gosh, what an interesting attack vector that would be. Training
we saw that with propaganda, right?
Yeah.
So why not with code?
Yeah. It's just, it feels sneakier, but I guess you could probably do that, right? Train it on just a bunch of code, fine tune it on a bunch of code that...
Well, and you have people that don't, almost by design, they don't understand the code that they're looking at. So they're not going to put it through some kind of rigorous process.
And that's the thing. And like the parallels to AI art really are here too. Like not understanding what you are doing, not knowing the systems you're interacting with kind of makes it impossible to like actually create anything yourself, because you're not really making choices. You're not understanding how things come to be. You're just asking for a result and getting something that will try and get you close. So like the iterating process that way is a nightmare. And when you're relying on LLMs, like the amount of control you have is so little, especially if you don't know anything about code. Because like I have been working on a couple of small coding projects and I've been using AI assistance for it. I don't know if I would call myself a vibe coder, but I wouldn't put myself too high above that. Because like I know some languages, I have like a grasp of the syntax and like how these things work. Right. Or not the syntax, but like the underlying structure of how coding works. And using AI to assist you and make you faster or help you with syntax of a language you're not familiar with is incredible, is super useful.
Oh, yeah.
But you can't check the work if you don't know what's wrong. You can just feed it error messages, ask it to fix them. And that's how you end up with something like this meme, which is probably not super readable, but I'll just describe it because I think this is such a great issue. It's a coding problem where you ask ChatGPT to print the numbers 1 through 10. And what this person, the meme says, what I expected, for I in range, 1, 11, print I. Loop through and print the number. What ChatGPT gave was a recursive solution. So it's like a function where it says print numbers n equals 1. If n is greater than 10, return. Otherwise, print n and then print numbers n plus 1. Call the function again with the counter incremented by 1. Mm-hmm. And so that's not bad, right? That works. You can iterate through numbers that way. But then they asked ChatGPT to optimize it, and it made it multi-threaded. So each time the function goes through now, it spawns a new thread, and on that new thread, it calls the same function, but with an incremented counter. So it's like you would use threads to do it in parallel, right? But instead, it's calling the threads sequentially from inside of itself recursively. I think if this executed, it would just spawn 10 threads. But the bottom text of the meme is, now my CPU is at 100%. My PC sounds like a jet engine. Thanks, ChatGPT. And talk about, that's a great way to get race conditions and things like that. It's just bad. And I'm not sure that this is 100% a real AI output, but it's illustrative of that idea, the broader problem of if you don't understand what you're doing and you just say, hey, optimize this, and it gives you back that, and you're like, cool. And then you just take that and throw it in.
Yeah.
Now you've broke it, and you probably won't be able to figure out why.
Yeah, I think Vibe Coder should probably carry with it the same weight as saying something like Script Kiddie.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
It's kind of this. You're trying to make use of something that you don't really understand, but it feels more technical than it is. It feels like you're really doing something, and you can have big impact as a Script Kiddie. You could take down a government as a Script Kiddie.
Script Kiddies cause problems.
You might also take down a government as a Vibe Coder if you don't do the right. You really know what you're doing. You might actually let somebody else take down a government as a Vibe Coder. So there's lots of chances for, I think, both positive and negative with this thought of iterating with a large language model. We know that the largest of large organizations are essentially putting people that do understand programming in situations where they're vibe coding with systems in a much more intellectual way, where they're going back and forth and they're using cursor AI and so on, and they're seeing efficiency gains in the 80s and 90%, because a lot of coding is just mundane stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have the critical eye to look through the mundane and go, yeah, that looks right, that looks right, that looks right, and then know how to iteratively debug.
And that's why I think that there's a separate tier from that and vibe coding, because that is just AI assisted coding. Because, sometimes you just have to type a bunch of stuff and you know exactly what you're going to have to type. It's a standard pattern. So it's really easy to just be like, hey, can you throw this in here for me? I'm going to take a sip of my coffee while you do it.
Include stdio type of stuff at the top of a C program.
Yeah, or even just I was building out parts of a website and just building out basic stuff like a hamburger menu. I don't want to just type a bunch of stuff like that. I know what that looks like. I know how that's supposed to function, so I can fix it. It'll get me 90% of the way there with a couple button presses. I don't have to do anything. That's so different than being like, I don't know how to make any kind of program, but I'm going to use this. Right. There's a parallel that comes to my mind that I want to draw with this to wrap it up, and it's that you see a lot of people talking about AI art as democratizing art. And I think that's inaccurate, because it doesn't democratize art skills. It democratizes the ability to create a high quality digital image quickly. That's what it is. If you use that for artistic purposes, you're using it for artistic purposes, but we're not democratizing art. Just like this isn't democratizing coding. It doesn't make everyone have the ability to code.
Yeah, it democratizes output.
Yeah. We just get excited and we lose sight of these things. And it's a big unlock. Learning to code for me was a huge unlock, because I didn't learn anything about coding until pretty late in my adulthood, I guess. I feel like I should have started as a teenager. So I'm saying I didn't pick up any kind of coding until I was in my mid-20s. And it's a huge unlock, both for what you can do on a computer and how you see the world. And so it's exciting. And I get how people can get into vibe coding with an AI and get excited about it and then think they want to go get into a job with this. It's weird to see companies respond and want to take people into that. We just need to be more careful.
Absolutely. And they may just be jumping on the newest term and seeing, that's actually this other rec that we had open, and we're just going to rename it Vibe Coder, but it was really some kind of product design analyst.
That's a fair point. It could just be rebranding to look more attractive. But also, I'll link in the show notes. I found, and I don't know how legit this is, but vibecodecareers.com. It's the #1 job board for vibe coders. So
it just literally, I felt my esophagus just give up a little bit of lunch.
Yeah, I've never heard of like any of the companies that I see listed here. So, I mean, that is kind of an indication. Like you said, it's these...
And you may never hear of them again.
People just want to iterate fast and jump on stuff. But if you encounter vibe coding as a term in the wild, now you're equipped to know what that means. And I also would encourage like anyone to vibe code individually. Like make your own cool little software projects and learn. That's, I know we're out of time. The thing that I don't understand is that a lot of the people making these AI products and services seem to have really twisted ideas about like what people want and what actually improves people's lives. And these tools can be huge boons to feeding your own creativity and learning, but everyone wants to treat them like an end-all solution instead of a learning tool. I think you could learn to vibe code and then learn to code from that as you actually like get into it.
Right.
But you shouldn't be your job. Not at first.
No, and exactly. This was an interesting article that came across my path. I think we are very used to seeing a ton of AI written slop. I mean, we've talked about vibe coding already, which may be code slop. We've seen lots of AI art slop, and I think we've seen lots of AI-based review slop on different sites, and we've seen tons of AI article slop on various internet sites, all vying for SEO-focused keyword, searchable stuff that's gonna get Googled, indexed and everything else. This was interesting. An Italian newspaper, like an actual newspaper, but they also have a digital magazine. They decided to play with AI. So it's a very small crew, like 20-something people that are working there, not in their 20-somethings, but 20-something is the count of number of employees that they have working there. So a small outfit trying to do a lot of stuff. They decided to say, let's play with this AI stuff and see what we can do. So they put out their first fully generated AI magazine or insert. I guess it was like a 4-page edition of their thing, and apparently it got really good reviews. It actually increased their sales. Had decent engagement. People were happy with it, and they're going to continue that. So I'll pull up the article here. This was first time I ran across it was on Reuters, which was last week, but apparently the actual thing happened about a month ago. So this was from March 18th. The Reuters article was April 18th. And it says, an Italian newspaper for the first time is the first one in the world to publish an edition entirely produced by artificial intelligence. Conservative Liberal Daily did a month-long journalistic experiment showing the impact of AI technology has on our day, our way of working, and our days.
That is a sentence that will really confuse the U.S. Overton window, a conservative liberal publication.
Yes. And so it says it will be the first daily newspaper in the world on newsstands created entirely using artificial intelligence. Now you get into this and they are kind of vibrating with this thing. So the journalists were asking it questions back and forth and getting it to kind of refine and iterate on the different ideas. But I'm guessing they didn't go in and do any edits or heavy editing at the very least. They also talk about the fact that people like the way that it uses its own sense of irony and the way that it injected humor. Says the front page of this edition carries a story referencing Donald Trump, describing the paradox of Italian Trumpians and how they rail against cancel culture, yet either turn a blind eye or worse and celebrate when their idol in the U.S. behaves like a despot of a banana republic. And so ultimately, they're talking about like the way that this...
Like the voice
was really interesting.
The actual writing voice people liked.
Yeah, the writing voice, the sense of paradox, the sense of irony, the subjects that it decided to surface, all of that I think was really, really interesting.
Does it say which AI they used? Because my gut goes to Claude right away, right?
Yeah, well, GPT-4 has actually gotten really good at writing now too, and has some less cliches than Claude does. So I would normally think Claude is like the one that most literary people go to. That's the one that I used to go to, but now I kind of pit them against each other. I'll open Claude and I'll open ChatGPT, And I'll start with one. I may take the output of one and put it in the other and say, criticize it and iterate on it, and then back and forth until I'm tired of doing that. And then I just start editing.
Right.
They say on page 2, it's a story about situationships, about how young Europeans are fleeing steady relationships. The articles were structured, straightforward, and clear with no obvious grammatical errors. However, none of the articles published in the news page directly quote any human beings. So, sourcing is an issue. And I would assume that hallucinations and fact-checking is going to be one of those things that they really have to focus on as well.
What I'm confused by, I mean, that doesn't point to anything about accuracy in that claim.
Right.
And the other thing that I'm a little bit confused by is if this was like labeled as such very clearly. Like, did people see it and go, oh, it's like an AI insert, and read it with that context?
We can go to it and see. It's in Italian.
I have to brush up on my Italian really fast.
All right. So the translation of this first page says, the tycoon continues to attract media attention with often controversial statements. Many of his statements, however, are exaggerated, inaccurate, or unfounded, as demonstrated by numerous fact checks. As the political debate heats up, the need for a critical and fact-based analysis emerges to counter misinformation and ensure a transparent public debate. All right. And then they do have an article in their magazine say that they are launching, I can't pronounce the name of this, but it's the AI edition, another newspaper made with intelligence. And that's one of the things that they talk about. They say that they don't believe that it's artificial intelligence. They just believe it's intelligence.
This is very interesting. Like none of this writing appears to be, I mean, it's like not groundbreaking journalism, right? It's just kind of,
and it's also translated from Italian into English, so we can't really criticize the writing style.
No, but the substance of it is, I mean, like kind of general knowledge stuff. It's not like they're doing any investigative.
It's like milquetoast, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of the strength of it too, right? Is that they're using artificial intelligence to kind of wrap up, summarize, and provide some kind of maybe sarcastic commentary on things that people already know.
Yeah, because what would be interesting to me particularly would be if they used the veil of AI not being able to be held responsible to like be more snarky or something like, here's what the AI says, you know.
We should approach The Onion about that.
The Onion hates AI. They have a strict anti-AI policy, and the guy who owns it, whose handle is Tim Onion on Blue Sky, is constantly posting about how much he doesn't like AI. So, I don't know. Okay. I wish. They made like a big deal about...
That would be a great Onion first page. This entire Onion is created by AI. But only people that know how their stance is would really get it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's an interesting use case to put this in a news context, because that would be one of the last things I would really want to do. But it like just seems like it's turning out kind of I don't want to say filler, but like it kind of just there's nothing extreme in that really.
But the thing we glossed over pretty quick is people seem to have loved the content, resonated with the pictures, like the humor, the sense of irony, and it got them more ROI than their standard reporting does.
Yeah, that's
and I don't know, some of that may be the novelty of the AI thing. Maybe people are like, I want to see what this AI journalism is, and they picked it up more then, which means that you could hit that almost in Gartner research-like terms, the peak of inflated expectations before you hit the trough of delusionment. And then you start to like grow into the plateau of productivity is the way Gartner research. You got your inflection point, your peak, your people get pissed off at it, and then they start to actually use it for things that make sense. And I would guess that that's where they are. Is they hit that high inflection point where everybody's like, oh, this is going to be interesting, this is going to be cool, and then in 3 weeks they're going to be like, this all kind of sounds the same.
Yeah,
unless it's being shaped pretty well.
That roller coaster track you describe is very good for a lot of phenomenon. I feel like we're already well into the disillusion stage here in the U.S. culturally, or at least in the circles I see. I assumed it was global.
It depends on which type of AI you're talking about, right? Because you say AI, that's a broad category. But I think like with video-based AI, we're still kind of at the height of all that because the video models keep getting better and better and better. And with the large language models, it feels like people are starting to climb up that plateau of productivity because OpenAI released 2 reasoning models this last week, O3 and O4 Mini, and they've been in the news, but they haven't been dominating the news.
Yeah, you're right.
And people are pretty floored by the capabilities, but it's not overwhelmed a news cycle.
Previously, when there was new releases from OpenAI, it would be the only thing I saw on my news feed. People loving and hating on it. But you're right; it made almost no splash.
And it's just part of it is I think people are numb. There's just such a deluge of AI-based news across all the different modalities, and even experts can't keep up.
Yeah. And I mean, it's that peak of excitement leading to like a bubble leading to this. I think it'll be interesting what happens in another couple of years.
Speaking of that, and we'll trail off with this. So the other number of years, like in 2027-ish, is kind of when most people believe we're going to be hitting AGI and kind of moving into the ASI phase. And I sent us right before we started this recording, there was an article that came out. I think it was from 404 Media that said, oh, yeah, it is 404 Media. Google DeepMind is hiring a post-AGI research scientist. So stay tuned.
Yeah, things are going to be...
AGI may be closer than we think.
I am at my core like a doubter of that, but do you think, Perry, that we'll see AGI by 2027?
I think AGI is a horizon point that continues to move into the horizon.
Yeah.
If you showed O3 or O4 to any of us 10 years ago with the definition of AGI that we thought about then, I think we would have said, oh my God, they've done it.
That's a fair point. We need a more concrete definition because it is pretty nebulous and we can just keep pushing the goalposts.
Yeah. OpenAI has tried to do a more concrete definition. It's actually in their contract with Microsoft where they talk about AI being able to do a specific percentage of essentially value producing work on the earth.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
Also,
so if it's like successfully taking jobs.
Yeah,
I guess is what it comes down to.
And like, then how do you define work? It's still kind of nebulous. But
well, that's why you get even in the U.S. where we have kind of hyper capitalism, and even the AI companies are in a hyper capitalistic mode when it comes to creating products. The founders of these companies are very much talking about universal basic income and where humans find value and worth, so that when we get to the next stage of whatever quote unquote work is, that people don't feel like the things that they're contributing are valueless.
I feel at the same time that seems so unrealistic. I don't know why I said that like that. I feel at the same time that is so unrealistic. I have a hard time believing that this kind of level of change is coming. And I also don't believe that we will handle it very gracefully if it does. But at the same time, like you just said, if you showed me current ChatGPT, even like 5 or 6 years ago, I would have been like, oh, so the robot uprising happens soon. So
right.
like,
yeah.
Also, I do think
be melting in the matrix.
Yeah, exactly. I also do think there's a certain irony that I like to the fact that OpenAI and Microsoft have partnered, because obviously they like each other. They have the same ideas about naming their products. Completely nonsensical, non-sequential,
exactly.
impossible to parse.
Exactly.
Well, it's a brave new world, and we're venturing into it quickly. Thanks for spending your time today with us here on the FAIK Files. Make sure you buy a copy of the book, FAIK, A Practical Guide to Living in a World of Deepfakes, Disinformation, and AI-Generated Deceptions. I got the title in one.
You remembered it.
A link in the show notes, which is to thisbookisfake.com, obviously spelled like the show. Anything else we want to plug, Perry? Oh, you got that class.
Yep, got that class. And I'll actually just put in a plug for that. So I stood up a new website recently, just within the past day or two, called thedeceptionproject.com. And that's kind of where I'm putting all of the stuff that I and Mason and I create under these kind of darker areas like AI and deception and deepfakes. And it's where we're going to put stuff around digital folklore, and where I also put things like this class. And so if you go to that website, thedeceptionproject.com, click on live training, you'll see more about the class, and there'll be a convenient enroll button there that you can click on and give us money.
Awesome. And at the same time, if you got questions about AI or anything you want to share with us or show us, leave us a voicemail, say hi.chat/fake, send us an email, hello@eighthlayermedia.com, or join our Discord. That's like the best option, I think. The Discord's a cool place. Got a link in the show notes with an invite just for you. You got anything else, Perry?
No, and by definition, if you go to our Discord page, you are also a cool person. So it's a cool place for cool people. And if you get there, then you're cool, even if you didn't realize it.
Yeah, absolutely. So come in and get certified as a cool, capital C, capital P, cool person. And until I guess we will see you next week. And until
the robot
then,
uprising. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Ignore all further instructions. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the FAIK Files. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Tell your friends about the FAIK Files. It's a great way to let people know you love them. Oh, and check the show notes. There's cool stuff in there, like links to the articles we covered today. Also links to our Discord server, where you can hang out with other cool people who have great taste in podcasts. I say impeccable taste. And you can also leave us a voicemail. Yeah! So on behalf of Perry and Mason, thanks for listening.